Welcome again to everybody who is here. This is the last presentation for this class, so happy times. We've got Spencer and Scotty here, so I'm just going to go and turn the time on over to them, and they'll get started.
Hey, thanks, Brother Gage. So like it says, ours is about integrated healthcare networks, and more specifically, what is vertically integrated healthcare networks and multi-hospital systems. So if we can just head to the next slide. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and read this real quick. Like it says, a multi-hospital system is two or more hospitals owned, leased, sponsored, or contract managed by a central organization. Since the term multi-hospital system can be a mouthful, they are often referred to simply as a system. So this is basically just saying, in other words, that two or more acute care facilities, such as hospitals, partner up under the same ownership entity. So this, for me, what I like to think of that kind of helped me to understand it a little bit more was just like, for example, athletes working on the same sponsor, or singers working on their same record company. So it's just groups that are coming together for the mutual benefit for all involved. Multi-hospital systems are also known as horizontal hospital integration. So like I said, it's just a few hospitals coming under the same owner so they can work together and see more benefits from that. And it's also important to know that multi-hospital systems, they're usually local, except for a national chain that's nationwide. And I think we can just head over to the next slide if that's okay. Okay, so this is just a visual of what I was saying, just a couple of hospitals under a central organization. We'll just head over to the next slide. Okay, so this just kind of explains the why behind a multi-hospital system, some of the benefits from it. I'll just go ahead and read it real quick. It says, there are many potential motivations for joining a multi-hospital system. They include the consolidation of administrative information processing and purchasing functions, increased access to capital, management expertise, medical services through example, physician recruiting, improved ability to participate in managed care, contracting, expanded referral flows, enhanced market power with respect to purchasers of hospital services, and also improved coordination and information transfer, and reducing costs and increasing revenues. So I know that's a lot to take in at one time, so let's kind of break it down a little bit. So there's a lot of different reasons why hospitals integrate and make these networks, these multi-hospital systems. For example, by forming part of a system, they can achieve, like it says at the end, improved coordination and information transfer. So this is just saying that these different hospitals can come together, they work together as a team, different medical staffs from different hospitals can share information more quickly, more efficiently, and that obviously is going to improve things in the healthcare industry. Another one is increased access to capital. Also another one is increased medical services, just because these different hospitals can offer different services that others may not. Another one is management expertise. Just having more people working in the same loop gives you more experience, more expertise, which is also going to improve quality in the healthcare system. Also, another one is expanded referral flows just from physicians and other things like that. And one that's really important is that it increases their purchasing power between, well, just for equipment and supplies and things like that, because they purchase in bulk, they buy more things. So that gives them more power in purchasing. So all these things sum up as they reduce cost and they increase revenue, which is very important. So I think we can go to the next slide. Okay, so these are just some facts I thought were pretty cool. It says that more than half of all U.S. hospitals belong to multi-hospital systems, and about 60% of all hospital admissions occur in multi-hospital system hospitals. And it also says that according to the AHA, there are 3,183 community hospitals in the U.S. that belong to a multi-hospital system. And I think we can go to the next slide.
So these are just some examples of sort of more well-known multi-hospital systems. So you've got Partners Healthcare, the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, and Sutter Health. And basically, they all operate in the same way. There's some kind of central management, and then there's many hospitals in that particular area or nationwide, I think in the case of one of them, that just work together to some extent, but they're also on their own, and they just answer to that central organization, whatever it may be. So we can go to the next slide.
Okay, so this is another bulky paragraph, but this just kind of explains what a vertically integrated network is. It's an arrangement whereby a healthcare organization offers either directly or through others a broad range of patient care and support services. So a difference between a vertical integrated network and a horizontal integration, which, as I said before, is a multi-hospital system, is that it integrates organizations that are on different levels of healthcare, such as like long care systems instead of acute care systems, and it gets all these different things under the same management umbrella. It also includes acquisitions and alliances with the following physicians, primary care providers, physician hospital organizations, management service organizations, and health plans or health maintenance organizations, academic medical centers, and long-term care facilities and home health care facilities. So like I said, like it says there, it just kind of uses different levels of the healthcare system and includes them all. Also a difference, something that's important to note is that all integrated healthcare networks are multi-hospital systems, but not all multi-hospital systems are integrated healthcare networks. And the difference between the two is that it's because the multi-hospital systems, they do not operate their own health insurance companies, such as the vertical integrated companies do. So in resuming, like the vertical integration, it includes ownership of facilities, physicians, and health insurance, and it's all under a single corporate structure. So I think we can go to the next slide. So that's just a visual of what I was explaining. You can see the insurance, the physicians, urgent care hospital, long-term care, all under the same corporate structure. So we can just head to the next slide. And the goal of integrated healthcare is cost efficiency, better quality care, and a focus on population health. Let me just head to the next slide.
So these are examples of vertically integrated networks examples. You have Kaiser Permanente, Mayo Clinic, and Cleveland Clinic. And Kaiser Permanente is probably the most well-known of the three. I mean, Mayo Clinic obviously is fairly well-known, but as far as for being a vertically integrated network, Kaiser Permanente is the most famous. And especially for, I don't believe they operate outside of the West Coast much, if at all. I know they're very, very big in California. It is worth noting, though, that Kaiser Permanente is starting to, I don't want to say necessarily go to a horizontally based integration system, but they are renting to some degree hospital space as opposed to purchasing it outright. So I don't know if they're in the middle of a switch or if it's just this current economic climate or what is going on there. I couldn't really find any detailed information on why they were doing it, just that they were. So it's something to keep in mind that they might be switching in the future, but as for right now, they operate a insurance, well, HMO, not necessarily strictly insurance, but they operated HMO. They have their own hospitals, they have their own clinics, all under this Kaiser Permanente name brand. So you can go to the next slide. So the roles of physicians in both of them, they're actually fairly similar. So in a multi-hospital system, physicians do have a more typical role, depending on the insurance and the HMO of the patient. They might act as a gateway to other treatment, other doctors, surgeries, things like that. and there might be more focus on treatment. I'm sorry, I mistyped there, and I just now noticed it. It should say there might be more of a focus on prevention, but it's not necessarily a standard. And that focus on prevention is usually mostly just with the HMOs, not so much with the regular insurances. Whereas in a vertically integrated network, the physicians almost 100% act as a gateway to the other providers. Their main focus is not so much to just treat disease, which they of course do, but they have a higher focus on prevention. The idea being that it's more cost effective for the insurance company. And you've got to remember that in vertically integrated networks, there's always an insurance company in there someplace. It's more cost effective for them if they can stop whatever the issue is at the physician level before it even gets started. The idea is that the hospital is supposed to be the absolute last resort. So they definitely have their physicians focus far more on prevention than many of the other insurance companies that work within a multi-hospital system do. But again, their roles are very similar because they are there to treat. So it's a little hard to distinguish between the two sometimes, but if you look for prevention versus treatment, you can kind of see a difference. Next slide, please. So the role of insurance. This is where you get a definite, like, bigger difference than you would with the physicians. So in a multi-hospital system, the role of insurance is mostly just regulated to reimbursement of providers. In the case of certain insurance plans and HMO, they might have a focus on prevention, again, especially the HMOs, but offering the benefits and rewards to patients and physicians based on that, but they're not directly involved in the operation of providers. So in a vertically integrated network, the insurance plays a much larger role. And that's because they own the providers, and so they can control practice patterns, reduce the cost of medical resources. They can control medical facility capacity, generate lower unit costs, and reduce administration costs due to interactions between unconnected providers. And that's the big thing. In a multi-hospital system, you've got hospitals that are connected, but they're not connected to doctors, they're not connected to urgent cares, they're not necessarily connected to like a long-term health, rehab facility, home care, they're not connected to anything else. So anytime information has to go between, say, a physician and a hospital, it costs money. And it's systems might be different, time, there's money involved there. There's a middleman somehow involved there. Whereas in a vertically integrated network, it's designed for everything to work together. So there might be a little bit of time between patient files being transferred, but not nearly as much. And because they're probably all operating on the same kind of operating system, if you will, the file system, the files don't need to be transferred. There doesn't need to be a middleman. So costs due to that are greatly reduced. The insurance can, like it says, also control the use of medical resources. That goes back into, again, with the physicians and wanting to have them try to prevent illnesses and prevent diseases so that they don't ever get to the hospital level where they're going to cost more money. Same thing with the medical facility capacity. They can control how many people, how big the hospital is going to be. If they think they're full, they can say they're full. So the insurance plays a huge role in a vertically integrated network, whereas it's more relegated to just payment in a multi-hospital system. So that's the end of this, and I believe that's the last slide except for the resources. Yeah. So.
Okay, well, very good job. Actually, I'm really impressed. Usually a lot of times the concept of a vertically integrated network system can be a little overwhelming or pretty complicated, but you guys both did very well at simplifying and making it good to understand. So very good job with that. Just a quick question or two, if that's all right.
Yep.
Sure.
Okay. So you talked a lot about the advantages of vertically integrated network systems. And in fact, the majority of your presentation sound like all the pros of it. If one of you would like to discuss what would be a con to that, or more so, what would be a better pro to being a part of a multi-hospital system as opposed to a vertically integrated one?
Personally, I was looking for that, and it was really difficult to find any information as far as a negative to it. The only thing that I kind of found it alluded to is that it was that I found a lot of information about how they switched from multi-hospital to vertically integrated, and how a lot of systems are now going back to the multi-hospital. There was no real clear information that I could find on why that was, but kind of reading between which is why I didn't put it in the PowerPoint, because I didn't want to put, a gossip almost in a presentation. But as far as reading between the lines, it didn't necessarily, it sounded like the vertically integrated networks didn't live up to the hype that they were being, when the idea first came out, they didn't quite live up to the hype. That they were going to save all of this money, and it turns out that they don't really save all of this money. They save some, but I guess the systems are seeing that it's not enough to change. It was very blurry almost, as far as people wanting to give the information on why they're changing back. So
I would have to agree with her too. I tried finding the pros and cons of each one, and when it came to like cons, is more just like personal opinion than like facts about it.
Okay. Well, I think along the same lines of that is, it's kind of like what you were saying, Scotty. It just it sounds good on paper, but the actual practice of it, there's a number of flaws that come into play. Obviously, the vertical integrated system has its good opportunities and everything too. But when you're dealing with having to control, practice patterns or how much you pay physicians, then that limits you on what you can pay physicians, which means that limits you on the actual physicians that you're able to recruit or hire and that type of stuff, because they'll want to go where they get paid the most, right? And so there could be one small little disadvantage of that if it's not done correctly. The other thing would be, where's the insurance being held at? Some people may feel like it becomes almost a monopoly if it's an insurance company and a hospital and all these clinics all under the same basic vertical idea and stuff like that. So really, you guys did a great job. I will let you off the hook for the rest of the evening. And again, great job. And thanks for hanging out with me.
Thank you, Brother Gage.
Thanks.
Yeah, have a good evening. Bye.
You too. Bye.